beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Go ye therefore into all the world and preach the gospel. Jesus spoke, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Taking the light to the nations. Light of the Southwest.
Wow, that was Gary Cooperberg, and if you think you've heard that shofar before, he's the one, Paul, that does the shofar on the update program.
No, I didn't know that.
Tell everybody who we got here today.
Okay, this is Gary Cooperberg with Project Shofar, and you're live in Israel. And what brings you to Texas?
To Texas? Well, Texas is the Lone Star State.
So you got
and Israel is also a Lone Star State.
Hey, that's right.
We have one star, it's a Star of David.
Right.
And we're all alone among a sea of other nations that are not too thrilled with us.
Friendly nations.
Yes. We are not afraid of standing alone. There's a good quality about being alone, being one. There's only one partner we really have, and that's the God of Israel, the living God of Israel, the creator of the universe. He's our partner.
Amen.
And we stand alone as an example, or we're supposed to be an example to the nations of the world. That's our destiny. We may not be doing it consciously at this time yet, but our destiny is to be the example to the nations of the world. People do not like to have a reminder that there is a creator. They don't like that idea. We've come to a stage in human development where our technology has become so great and so vast and so incredible that people are beginning to think that they're the creator, that we don't need God anymore. And quite frankly, Project Shofar, the shofar is the alarm. It's an ancient alarm, and it's a symbol of what I'm trying to do.
What did you just blow? You gave a message there.
No, that's the standard sounds that we sound on Rosh Hashanah, which we were commanded to do by God to remind all of us that there is a God above us. And of course, the shofar came from the sacrifice of Isaac, when at the last minute before Abraham sacrificed his son, God told him to stop and provided a ram to sacrifice in his place. And from that ram, we are told, 2 shofars were made. One shofar was to be sounded on Mount Sinai when the Torah was given to the Jewish people. And the second shofar will be sounded when the Messiah comes and the redemption is in full progress. And that's the shofar we're all waiting to hear. Now the shofar, that's really the symbolism of what Project Shofar is all about. And it started off with my desire to reach out to my fellow Jew in America and tell him it's time to come home. But when I started making speaking tours, I discovered that I have another mission. And that mission is to try to help America save itself. Because America is on the road to the self-destruction right now.
Yes.
And so one reason for that's because it has rejected the principles upon which it was founded. Sure. The founding fathers of the United States of America were God-fearing people. They included God as a full partner in the building of this new country, the new world. They tried to model America after Israel. There was a time when there was talk of changing the national language to Hebrew to get rid of all connection to England. They wanted to abandon their connection with England completely and become a new country, a new world, and they modeled it after the Bible. Now, what has happened to us since then is that Our country has been rejecting all godly connections. We start to think that we're in control, that we don't need God anymore. And once you start throwing God out, it's like taking the foundations out from under a building. It's not going to be able to stand much longer. The more you keep chipping away at the foundations, the sooner the building's going to collapse. And this is what I see happening today in the United States of America. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sounding the alarm too. And there's a very simple message here. It doesn't have to be complicated. I don't want America to support Israel because we need their help. I want America to support Israel because it's in the interest of the United States of America to show to the entire world that it believes in God. And the best way to show you believe in God today is to go with the godly process of Jewish return, of the homecoming, of the ingathering of the exiles as predicted in the Bible. This is a biblical process, not a political one. My own people, my own leadership in Israel do not see the miracles that are going right before their own eyes, right under their very noses. We are the subject of miracles today that show you without a doubt that the Bible is true, that all the predictions are coming true. 100 years ago, it may have been a dream. Today, it's reality. We can see the Jewish people are coming home from all over the world. We've reestablished sovereignty in parts of our country. We've reestablished the Hebrew language as a living language.
The desert's blooming.
The desert's blooming. The country's growing. And all of this in spite of leadership that doesn't even know what they're doing.
Right.
It's definitely a supernatural reality that you can see. It's a process that is supernatural. And anyone who just stops and thinks about it for a minute can see that. It's not just a story. It's not that wishful thinking. It's not blind faith. This is what's going on today. And this is something that we have to open our eyes to. And the shofar is one symbol of opening your eyes. Wake up. Things are happening. You have to do something about it. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. next week. And my friend Richard Hellman is going to be taking me around. I don't know who I'm going to be seeing or what I'm going to be doing yet. But if I get a chance to speak to senators or congressmen, I'm not going to give them the message that they will get from Netanyahu or Jewish leaders. I'm not going to say, please help us, please save us from Iran, please you have to do this. No. I'm going to say, as a senator of the United States of America, you have a responsibility to the United States of America. Don't do me any favors. Do yourself a favor and do your job and save America. By standing with Israel, you're showing the world and you're showing God that you believe in him. That might save America, maybe. Anything else, and this country is doomed. This is the message that I want to bring.
Whatever happens to Israel is going to happen to our country, I believe, good or bad. In some way, we're going to suffer when you suffer.
Well, suffering, we suffer because we are being punished for not doing our job. Now, I don't necessarily agree with what you just said, good or bad, because we're getting the bad because we deserve it.
Talking about the blessing and the curse.
That's right, but the good is only going to come if you deserve it. The state of Israel is guaranteed by God to survive anything. We suffer, we have terrorism, we have all kinds of problems, but we cannot be destroyed. That God will never let that happen. The state of Israel cannot be destroyed, but he never made that promise to anybody else. There's no guarantee that the United States won't be destroyed.
He's protected
that could happen.
You. All the wars you've had since you become a state.
That's right.
God's in them. If they look at the modern history of Israel and look at those wars, they're going to see that God was with y'all in those wars.
At the time when we won, everybody saw the miracles. But as years go by, we forget miracles and we think, oh, we were lucky, or they explain it away. But absolutely. The point of the matter is, if we had lost even one war, we wouldn't be here. We've been destroyed, because that was the aim of our enemies, to destroy us. Our only aim was to survive. And
you haven't invaded anybody yet.
Our purpose has always been to be gentle, to say, well, we'll accept what we can take. We accepted the partition plan back in 1948, which was absurd. The little tiny piece of land that they were going to give us. We accepted it. The only reason it didn't happen that way was because the Arabs wouldn't accept it. They didn't want even a tiny little piece of Israel. And so they attacked us with the attempt and belief that they could destroy us. And logically speaking, they should have. It was only a miracle of God that protected us, and it was destiny, of the biblical destiny, that we are coming home, rebuilding our nation. And I'm telling you, even the Jewish leadership fails to see the miracles here. And they can't explain what's going on. They don't understand it at all. If they understood it, they wouldn't be negotiating today. I mean, today we're much stronger than we were back in 1948. Mm-hmm.
Amen to
we
that.
shouldn't be afraid of our enemies, even though, yes, our enemies outnumber us. They're stronger than we are. They have much more assets than we do. But we have one asset that nobody can come close to, and that's the protection of the God of Israel. And
Amen.
anybody who sees the recent history of this country can't deny it.
That's right.
But they close their eyes. They don't want to look. And that's the problem. And that's what Project Shofar is trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do. Open your eyes and look. Look at reality. I'm not saying have faith. Don't have blind faith. Look and see what's going on. Open your Bible, open your newspaper, and see. It's happening. It really is happening. And that's what's so exciting. And I can't understand why people feel negative about it. They're worried. What are you worried about? We have 60 years of experience. Ever since this country was founded, everybody's been trying to tear us apart. And they failed. Not because we're so great, but because God will not allow his destiny to be interfered with. And anyone who tries to interfere with it will be punished, including my own people. That's why we have terrorism. There's no other reason for it. And even our enemies are tools of God. God created Arabs to show us what we're supposed to be doing. When we go to negotiate land, the Arab will say, I can't negotiate with you because it belongs to me. It's a holy land and it belongs to me and I can't negotiate it. Where did you ever hear a Jewish leader talk like that? That's an Arab lie, but it's our truth. And he's saying the lie so that we'll listen and we'll learn something. We don't learn anything. We learn nothing. The Arabs have self-respect and we don't. That's what's missing.
You're talking about terrorism. The last act of real terrorism that I read about happened just in the last few weeks outside of Hebron, where they stopped the car and point blank shot everybody, wasn't it?
Well, this is how they behave, and I don't understand my leadership. That's all I can say. When Netanyahu negotiated with Arafat, he gave away 80% of Hebron to the Arabs. Now, it's very interesting to note, first of all, why 80%, why not 50%? Why 80%? I don't know. The 80% that he gave away, you will not find one Jew living there. In the 20% that he kept, there's loads of Arabs. The negotiating process today is the same concept. If we give them a state, God forbid, they already are telling us, and we're accepting it, their state will be only Arabs, no Jews. And what's left of Israel, we have to keep the Arabs here too. And we're discussing this nonsense. It's absurd. And we have Arabs sitting in our Knesset passing such important laws as how do you define a Jew? I need an Arab to tell me how to define a Jew? Arabs do not belong in our Knesset. Well, where do you find a Jew in the parliament of any Arab country?
That's right.
It's absurd. The whole
Are
thing is
those
absurd.
Israeli citizens that sits in the Knesset?
They're members of Knesset. They're legislators, not just citizens.
But
Much beyond citizens. They were voted for. They're part of the process. Yes, we have lots of Arab citizens of the state of Israel, and I think that's an oxymoron. An Arab citizen of Israel. That's ridiculous.
What's the viewpoint, do you think, of the Arabs there in the Knesset towards Israel? Are they favorable?
They are working to destroy the country from within.
Within the
Any
Knesset.
Arab who says, I'm a Palestinian, is basically saying, Jews have no right to be here. This is really Palestine. It's not Israel, it's Palestine. And someday we're going to change the name back to Palestine, and we're going to be in charge.
So they're elected by Arabs mainly?
Mostly, I should hope. I should hope there weren't. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jews vote for them too,
Right.
because Jews are strange people. What can I tell you? I can't explain them to you. But no, the purpose of the Arab concept of Palestine is to destroy the Jewish state of Israel.
Absolutely.
And any Arab who calls himself a Palestinian is an enemy of the Jewish state and should not be tolerated. Why do we have to have them living here? If my government had at the very beginning simply stated, Arabs who wish to recognize the state of Israel and live here in peace with us and accept our laws and not have citizenship are welcome to live here just as resident aliens live in this country. That would have been fine. And we could have lived in peace with them. But when you tell them they're equal and they have equal rights and it's democracy, then all of a sudden a light goes on in their head and says, wait a second. That means if we work really hard, we can take it away from them peacefully.
Yeah.
We don't have to go to war.
Take advantage of your
Just let's grow, have a big population growth, And let's just take over the country, because it's democracy. This was a knife that we put on our own back. We did this. I don't blame the Arabs for it. If you're going to help your enemies, why shouldn't they take advantage of
Same
the help?
thing's happening in our country. They're taking advantage of our laws.
Democracy has its limitations. It really does. And it can be very dangerous sometimes.
When did they start giving I never thought about that till you mentioned it. When did they start giving the Arabs citizenship? In 46, 48? What?
Yeah, from the very outset, yeah.
From the very beginning.
Because the leaders in that time felt that the Arabs were not so very smart. They could be taken advantage of. You can buy their votes. This was the smug attitude of these people who supposedly are democratic and equal thinkers. They had scorn for Arabs. They had no respect for them. If they had respect for them, none of this would have happened. And of course, these people don't have any self-respect either, which is one of the major problems we have in our country. We have to recognize that it's our country, number one. It's not a democracy like America. America is a country of all of its citizens, people from all over the world who came here to build a new country. And so a noble thing that they did. But that's not what Israel is. Israel's a homeland of the Jewish people. It's fulfillment of biblical prophecy, which is actually, you can see it coming true. And it was designed so that the Jewish people would build a Jewish country where they would follow God's law and become an example unto the nations. We're not here to tell the nations what to do. We're here to show them by example how to please God. And when we do that, God gives us all kinds of wonderful advantages, and everybody would look and say, look, what wonderful things are happening to these people. What are they doing that we're not doing? And then by example, that's the best way to teach is by example.
That's been your mission since the beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But my people today are modern, pragmatic,
yeah.
and they have lost all sight of the obligation that we have as Jews to simply be good Jews. That's all. Just to make our country a Jewish country and observe God's laws and serve God. And then all the miracles will come, and then the redemption will be complete, and the whole world will have peace. Not just us. God, the Jewish people is God's gift to mankind. That's what we are. We're here to serve all of mankind through God. He chose us for that purpose. And if the Arab terrorists would understand what they're doing when they're harming us, they're harming themselves. They're pushing away any chance of peace and prosperity. We're here as a blessing. We don't want to hurt anyone. We don't want to take away anything that belongs to somebody else. We just want to do what God commanded us to do, that's all. Nothing more. And that's plenty, that's more than enough.
Your people have been harassed and mistreated for so many centuries that your people just want peace, and they want to live like other countries do, have the things they have, and they're willing to give up nearly anything to have that, aren't they?
That's right. But we're destined to be a nation that stands alone, not to be reckoned among the nations of the world.
Right.
That's our destiny. We don't like it necessarily. And a lot of Jews think that they can escape it. Like Jonah tried to escape the whale, to escape his destiny, he was swallowed by the whale. You can't escape destiny. You can try, and you'll discover when you try that you're just bringing more troubles upon yourself. It's a waste of time.
Finding God.
And there's no reason for it. Mm-hmm. And today, when we have so much, when we can see that God is already working miracles for us, why not work with it? I mean, it's foolish to throw away the beautiful things the gifts that we have been given today. We have been given tremendous gifts. And that's one thing also that I try to explain to my Jewish brothers. God has given us the greatest gift of all today. And that gift is to choose to come home. To choose to come home on your own. That's a gift. And that gift will not be forever. That gift will eventually be taken away. And when that happens, we will come home against our will even. And we won't have the same joys and the same merit in coming home when we're forced to come home as we will if we go home on our own and show God how much we love him by leaving a beautiful America and going to an Israel that seems like it's a dangerous place.
When did you do that?
When did I do that?
What year was that?
It was about 30 years ago, I guess. I remember exactly, 1979.
You were living in New York City, weren't you?
I was living in Long Island, near New York City. I was teaching in New York City. I was a traditional Jew at the prior to this.
What is a traditional Jew? Explain that, Phil.
Well, whether or not you observe all the laws, I was an American, like most Jews here. I was an American first and a Jew second. I didn't think too much about my religious obligations. I didn't really care too much about it. I don't know when lightning struck me, whatever it was, but one day I just decided in my own heart that I have an obligation as a Jew to serve God, to do what a Jew is supposed to do, to follow the law and to try to please God. And I started to become religious. The first thing I did is I put the kippah on my head. That was my first thing, to identify myself, to show the whole world I'm proud of being Jewish. And that was before I did all the other observances too, and it was a little strange.
It was a process for you then.
It was a very difficult process because my wife didn't get the same bolt of lightning that I got, which is understandable. And I had the foolish notion that I could become a religious Jew without including my wife, that I wouldn't impose upon her the same feelings that I've imposed upon myself. And when you have a marriage, it doesn't work that way. You have to share things together. You have to do everything together.
And what happened?
And it looked pretty bad for a while.
And?
I thought that if I kept on the path I was going, that I would lose my family. I had two little girls, and I really didn't think there was much hope for our future. I couldn't see how I was going to get out of this mess that I put myself into. And then I remember walking to the synagogue. I had an argument with my wife. I used to drive her to work every morning. And she was a nurse in a hospital. And she didn't want to learn how to drive a car because she saw the results of car accidents, how people are crippled for life, and she was terrified of driving a car. So she never learned how to drive a car. So when I started to take upon myself the observance of the Sabbath, I said, listen, I can't drive you anymore to work on the Sabbath. So we made a compromise. I said, I'll tell you what, if you immediately begin to take driving lessons, once you get your license, then I will stop from driving. Otherwise, I'll take you on the Sabbath at that point. So here I am. I'm taking her to work, driving to work on the Sabbath.
Is she a Jew?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And then I drive the car back home, and then I would walk 2 miles to the synagogue.
Okay.
Kind of strange. Well, I started asking myself questions at this point. And I'll never forget, I said, what am I doing? What if I become the most religious Jew in the world and move to Israel, and even if I became a rabbi, if it cost me my wife and family? Mm-hmm. Could this be what God wants? That doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And what came into my head at that point? The story of Abraham. And God said to Abraham, take your son, your only son whom you love, and offer him to me as a sacrifice. Now, I wasn't about to offer my family as a sacrifice, of course not. But I understood the dedication of Abraham. And I would just have to take this path and just deal with it the best I could. I couldn't turn backwards. I would do everything I could to keep my family, but I could not go back on the path that I began. And to make a long story short, not only didn't I lose my family, but they doubled in size. Not only did we become observant Jews, but we moved to the land of Israel. Not only did we move to the land of Israel, but we ended up living in the backyard of Abraham.
Really?
I don't need faith. I have proof.
Right.
God is with me all the way, everywhere I go. I know this. That's why I make these trips. The first couple of trips, I was terrified. I felt like I was a fool. I'm not equipped for this. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a scholar. I had no training. Well, what do I think I'm doing? But I went out and I did it, and God put the words in my mouth. And God sent angels before me to protect me. And it's been consistent. I've never been anywhere that I didn't find the right words to say, that I didn't maintain my composure. And this is against my nature. I'm an introvert by nature. I don't like to speak in front of people, at least I never used to. Now I'm enjoying it. But I discovered this by going out and just trying to serve God, putting my soul and my body and my life in His hands. And He's guided me and helped me every step of the way.
He equips you.
It's amazing. And again, I'm not a scholar. I was speaking before a mixed group of Christians and Jews, and I said something that really upset a religious Jew. I said, according to our sages, all of the commandments of the Torah are connected to the land of Israel. And the only reason we still observe them when we're not in Israel is so we won't forget how to do it when we go home. He got so upset, he got up and he was almost shouting at me. So are you trying to tell me that God doesn't love me when I honor my father and my mother here in Dayton, Ohio? Well, at that moment, all of a sudden, a light bulb went over my head. I said, thank God he picked that commandment. And so I was calm and very quiet, and I said to him, you know, sir, I'm sure God loves you for honoring your father and your mother. But let me ask you a question. Of all the commandments in the Torah, there are just a few of them that God himself tells us what the reward is for the commandment. Do you remember the reward for honoring your father and your mother?
Long life.
He thought, that's exactly what he said. Oh, long life. I said, that's true. Where? His friend opened up the Bible to the exact right page and said, in the land that God promised you as the eternal inheritance. He was lost. Now, again, these are words that God put in my mouth. These are ideas that came to me. If he would have asked a different question, I don't know if I would be prepared to answer him. But I was blessed with divine guidance and help. And this is the sort of thing that goes on all the time with me. I don't know what's going to be, but I'm prepared to face it. And God is with me. And it's a wonderful feeling. And just the fact that I can come here is a miracle. I don't work for an organization, really. I created an organization. And most of the funding I get from this organization comes from Christians. Now, I don't need a lot of money. I'm not a big deal operation. It's just to raise enough money to buy a plane ticket and go around and speak to people. That's all I do. This is a hobby. It's not my profession. I don't get paid for this. This is not my means of sustenance. I'm giving, and I've been given the gift to be able to give. It's an incredible thing. It's a miracle. Most of my funding comes from Christian Zionists, Christians who see what my own brothers don't see. They watch the miracles and they say, wow, this is great. And by the way, that also was predicted by King David many, many years ago. I forget which psalm it is now. One of the psalms. We recite it every Sabbath and festival before we recite grace after meals. And part of the words of that psalm is, God will, I'm trying to remember the psalm now, wait a second. Just slipped my mind for a second. Az yomru vagoyim, in Hebrew, and then the nations will say, Higdil Hashem lasot im ele. Look at the great things that God is doing for them. And then afterwards he says, Higdil Hashem lasot imanu. God is doing great things for us. We say that, and we can be happy. So what does that mean? Before we even know that God's doing great things for us, it's the nations of the world that see it and tell us about it. And to me, this is the role being fulfilled by Christian Zionists today. They're fulfilling the psalm. They're seeing the miracles that God is doing, and they're coming and say, look what God is doing for you. Look at this. And maybe some of us will listen to what they're telling us and recognize that indeed God is doing great things for us today. Wonderful things for us today.
So one of your missions is to get the Jews back to the land. Is that correct?
Well, that's God's mission.
Okay.
That's God's mission. I'm trying to help him with that as much as I can.
In what way do you fit into that in trying to help God get, what do? Do you speak to Jewish people?
Whenever I can. That's the hardest thing in the world, speaking to Jewish people.
Okay.
Because they're the last ones in the world who want to recognize the miracles that are going on. This shofar is an alarm. I'm trying to sound an alarm. I'm trying to open up eyes. I'm trying to get people to see. I don't want to scare anybody and say, it's dangerous here, you better get out before you're destroyed. Although there may be validity in that also.
True.
That's not the tack I take. I simply say, listen, we've been praying for 2,000 years to come home. Every Passover, we say next year in Jerusalem. Every time we pray, we pray that God will return us. Well, open up your eyes. We've been in exile for 2,000 years, and God has begun the process. Why stay here when you can be there? If you want to be complete as a Jew, there's only one place you can do that, and that's in Israel. And today's the day. I mean, it was true throughout the centuries. It was always true. But years ago, it was impossible. You couldn't do it.
What kind of response do you get? They're too comfortable. There's the problem.
Yeah, well, it's the same unfortunate thing that happened in Europe. Zev Jabotinsky, the founder of the Cherut movement, of what is today Likud, He went throughout Europe telling the Jews that the ground underneath your feet is on fire. Get out while you still can.
Right.
They threw rocks at him.
Yeah.
They thought he was crazy. This is my country. What are you talking about? And when you tell an American today he should leave, he says, what are you talking about? I'm an American. This is my country. I was raised here. My family was here for generations. What are you talking about? You're being ridiculous.
That's a good point, yeah.
And logically speaking, they're right. Why would anyone want to leave the luxury of America to go to a place where they blow up bombs and where the economy is terrible and you have to serve in the army? It's not logical what I'm asking people to do.
There may be more protection there, though, than here.
They're not made. There's no question about it.
Yeah, especially...
The point is logic doesn't enter into the picture here.
Right.
If you're going by logic, you shouldn't go home to Israel because it's not logical. But there's nothing about Israel that is logical. It's supernatural. It's part of a divine process. And we can see it. Like I said, many, many years ago, when people would talk about all these wonderful ideas and destiny and prophecies, that was just talk. You have to have real faith to believe that maybe someday it'll happen.
Right.
But we see prophecies coming true before our eyes today.
Absolutely.
It's no longer faith, it's intelligence.
Right.
You have to realize that we have a supernatural situation here. God is moving things the way He told us He's going to move. It's not even a mystery. I mean, you look at the Bible, read it, and see what's going to happen. You can see, and it's happening.
Right.
And when you put your hands in God's hands, it's nothing to worry
If they
about.
don't go back, God's going to put the heat on them some way to make them go back. But like you said, it'd be better if they went back of their own accord.
Exactly. It's the gift is there for a short time. When that gift is taken away, then we'll come home, but it won't be a pleasant experience. And this is
that in itself would have a devastating effect on our country when they leave. You know that.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
What are there, 6 million or more?
Yeah, there's more Jews living in here than in Israel.
Right.
Yeah. You're right.
Right. Very prominent positions in our country. And yeah, it would hurt us.
Like on Obama's cabinet.
Yeah, right.
Not cabinet, but yeah. What do you think about the situation that Israel is going through right now with the pressure being put on them by, as we speak, Vice President Biden saying we'll always be behind the Jews? He's grinning. Get that shot of him grinning. What do you think?
Listen, I don't put any stock in this pressure business. I'm not going to blame anybody except my own leadership. I believe that peace is found in Jerusalem, not in Washington, D.C., not in Madrid, not anywhere else. We have all the keys here. We have everything. We choose not to use them.
Right.
And that's the tragedy. We should be in charge. We shouldn't be taking dictation. Oh, yeah, we give up this. What are we, a Chinese menu to decide what we're going to give away and what we're going to keep? God gave us the land. We have no business undoing His miracles or trying to. Do you realize ever since 1967, ever since the war of 1967, every single government of Israel has been trying to undo that miracle? And that's a miracle in itself, that the fact that they haven't been able to.
Yeah.
When you think about it. They wanted to. Every single one. And Netanyahu's still playing games. Why can't he stand up and say, no, we can't do that? God made a miracle, and it's something that we have no control over. It belongs to us. We have no right to give it to anybody else. We have no right to sell it or lease it to anybody. It's ours. Not because we want it, but because this is our obligation that God put upon us. God told us that this is what we have to do. We have no choice. And when He performs miracles, you don't spit in His face.
Well, you have a right to their land, because it is really part of Israel.
Yeah.
This article I've got today says most of Israel itself is occupied by Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and even Saudi Arabia.
What about Jordan?
Yeah.
All of Jordan.
Yeah, that's the first one.
The entire country belongs to us. That's a false creation.
Right.
All of Jordan belongs to us. So when my people say, when I hear Jews say, oh, well, Jordan is Palestine. Let them go to Jordan, make Jordan Palestine. So what are you talking about? Jordan is Israel. They have no right being in Jordan either.
In effect, they should end the occupation of Israel land.
Right. Yeah, we should have land for peace. We'll make peace. They'll give us back our land.
Right.
Absolutely right. And that's, again, exactly what I was saying before. Our enemies are showing us what we should be doing. We should be demanding land for peace.
Where you live is north of the city of Hebron, isn't it?
Well, it's part of the city of Hebron. I mean, Hebron covers a lot of territory. Kiryat Arba is just a small settlement in the whole area which is called Hebron. Okay, you're talking about downtown Hebron, which is more heavily populated, and that's like the city of Hebron. Yeah, we're right near the city of Hebron. Right.
How surrounded are you by the Arabs?
I would imagine at least 10 to 1.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does the IDF still
of course.
support you?
Of course.
And defend you?
Absolutely. That's what its function is.
There's been a lot of, when we first met you, Gary, we were told to stay out of Hebron as too dangerous. Mm-hmm. But there's been a lot of change in that recently, hasn't there?
That whole thing is just a perception that people have, and that perception has been going on for forever, and it probably still exists. People are afraid of the unknown. People are afraid of what they read in the newspapers. And, this is what happened. I'll tell you an incident that happened to me when I first tried to get people to come down to Hebron. I volunteered to be a public relations person for the city of Hebron. And I wanted to attract visitors, tourists, to come down and visit because they weren't coming down. Right. So I called up a tour guide who gave tours of Jerusalem and wanted to ask him advice. When I first spoke to him, he was a very nice fellow, and then all of a sudden I said one word and he almost hung the phone up in my face. What was the terrible word I said? Hebron. He said, we are an international hotel and we cannot deal in religion or politics.
Really?
And this guy gives walking tours of Jerusalem. So what's the difference? If I give walking tours of Hebron, he gives walking tours of Jerusalem. They're both holy cities. What makes it religion and politics? Well, anyway, I couldn't reason with the guy, so I had to find my own way to get people to come down to Hebron. And what did I do? I found a tourist magazine that they give out for free in all the hotels in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And I took out an ad.
You did?
Free walking tours of Hebron. Just call me up. You get on the public bus. Come down to Hebron, I'll meet you at the bus, take you around for an hour, put you back on the bus, no charge.
When did you do that?
Oh, this was a long time ago. Must have been close to 20 years ago, maybe.
I didn't know that you could take a public bus down there. Are they armored that way?
Now they're all bulletproof.
Because when we went down there, we always had to take and rent an armored bus.
Mm-hmm. No, you can take the public transportation. They're all protected.
How about that?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you don't feel unsafe there, do you?
No.
You wouldn't live there if you felt that unsafe.
That's true.
Yeah.
Look, there was a time when I wouldn't drive my car because it was drive-by shootings.
Okay.
They would drive by the driver, take their gun and shoot. Even if you had a gun, I'm driving and I would have time to shoot. Yeah. And it's point-blank range when they come up right next to you. Yeah. It was a horrible time. At that time, I would only take the buses. But... no, we've lived with terror. We have lived with terror.
I understand.
It's not something that's easy to live with.
We're getting a slim taste of that in our country now. It'll probably get worse. But I feel totally different in this country than I did, 10, 20 years ago.
Why?
With what's going on with what you hear about the Muslims and their nests that they have in various parts of our country, and they could be called out at any time,
Well, 20 years ago, you never heard of the Muslims.
No.
Hardly 10 years
Not
ago.
until 9/11, really, did I was aware of it.
Hey, that's a good thing. What do you think about them putting that mosque downtown in Ground Zero?
I think that it should be prevented. That's what I personally think. And again, this country is more vulnerable than my country is. It really is. Because this is the true democracy, which everybody has equal rights, Right. And there are people who take advantage of those equal rights and exploit them to destroy the country. That's why I say democracy needs limitations. You can't allow democracy to destroy itself. I mean, that defeats the whole purpose. And yet, right today, this is a danger, here too. In Israel, I object to the concept of what everybody in the Knesset insists has to be. That's a Jewish democratic state. To me, that's an impossibility. You have to pick and choose what you want. Do you want a Jewish state or you want a democratic state? If you want a democratic state, then you have to forget the Jewish state. And if you really want a Jewish state, then you have to forget the concept of a democratic state.
Won't work together.
And they don't want to do it. And they refuse to believe that you can't do them both. Slowly they're learning, I hope. If not, we'll suffer for it.
What would the government be like under a Jewish state?
The world would be a better place.
No, I know that.
Not just Israel, the whole world.
But it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have a Knesset and all that, would you? Or
I
would
don't
you?
know. I don't know whether you would or you wouldn't, but you don't vote on God's laws. You don't vote on commandments. Look, should we eat kosher food or not? That's not our job. God already decided what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do.
You don't get to vote on that.
No, we shouldn't anyway. But there was a member of Knesset a number of years back who wanted to change the Passover Haggadah so that it wouldn't offend Egyptians.
It would not what?
It wouldn't offend the Egyptians.
Why the Egyptians?
Well, they're our peace partners. If they read the Haggadah and see the things that happened to them because of us, it might offend them. We can't play games with our holy scriptures. You can't play games with that. It's not ours. We didn't write it. It's not a storybook. It's real. And we shouldn't be ashamed of our obligations and our destiny and just go ahead and do what we're supposed to do. If we had a really Jewish state that really observed Judaism, I mean, Judaism is not here to hurt anybody, to take over anybody, to demand that anybody do different than they are. We're here to set an example, to make the world a better place, to elevate mankind to holiness. That's what we want to do. We don't want to lower anybody or to kill anybody or to steal anybody's land. We want to make the world a better place. We want to elevate all of mankind to holiness by example, not by telling them or forcing them to do something else, by showing them that when we do it, look what happens to us.
Right, you'd be blessed.
That's all. And if you want the blessings, you can have the blessings too. And it's easier for you than it is for us. We have 613 commandments that we have to do. A non-Jew who wants to be close to God has 7. If he does all those 7 commandments, he's as holy as we are. It's easy. So we have a tremendously wonderful role to play.
Those 7, is that the Noahic?
Exactly, that's right. That's right, from the time of Noah. If we just do our job, the world will certainly be a better place, and we have the ability to do it, and unfortunately we have leaders who don't understand at all, and trying to make everything like, we're all just like all the other nations. Mr. Netanyahu wrote a book. What was the name of his book? A Place Among the Nations. That's his dream. He wants to undo the blessing and give us a place. We have no place among the nations. We are set apart from the nations for a reason, for a holy reason. We can't rewrite the Bible. Even Rabin, another prime minister, said the same thing. He stood up in the Knesset and said, we are no longer a nation that stands alone. Well, he's rewriting the Bible for us. He may be prime minister, but he's not God. Something happens to these people when they get elected. I don't know.
You got killed, didn't you?
Same thing here.
Yeah, once you get to office, the President of the United States is like God. He thinks he has all the answers.
It's all boiling down to power and money now. That's what's running the machine.
Well, we need to point out that Gary is an American citizen, just like we are.
That's right.
He's doing his heart towards America to try and turn us around.
The shofar is being sounded for America as well as for my people here. I would like to see this country continue. I would like to see this country follow the principles that founded it.
You know, in this hour that we got with you, you need to tell people if they want to get behind you and support you, what to do. How can they do it?
Well, physically, as I said before, maybe not in this program, I don't remember anymore, but Project Shofar to me is my personal mission, to go out and speak to people about the things that I've been talking about tonight. I do not have an organization that has the money to send me on this mission. I do it all by myself, based on contributions I get, mostly from Christian Zionists who feel that this message needs to be given.
In other words, it's not a big old tax-deductible organization. It's just Gary.
I am a tax-deductible
Are you
organization.
really?
Yes, yes. With the help of my Christian Zionist friends, I am a tax-deductible 501c3 organization. Absolutely am. I don't raise big money, but I don't even need to raise big money. It's not necessary. And if tomorrow I got nothing, what would happen to me? I would have to stop making trips, that's all. Nothing else. This doesn't affect my income whatsoever. If I get money, the more money I get, the more I can do. Meanwhile, I've been quite satisfied being able to come once a year for the short time that I can. If I could do more, I would. But I'm very limited in what I can do. I'm not expecting a tremendous amount of money. But let me tell you, if the people who are watching this program right now would commit themselves to $5 a month, which is almost nothing, it would be more than enough to make it possible for me to continue these trips. And I must tell you that because of the economy right now, the people who were giving me money on a regular basis have stopped giving. They
Really?
can't. Yeah. And I have enough money for this trip and maybe another one, I'm not sure. And if the economy keeps going and people can't give, then I'll just have to stop. It could be it's time for me to stop. So I do this according to what God commands me. You know, if it turns out that the time has come that it's too late to start giving these messages, and maybe it's time to stop. Maybe there are other ways for Jews to come home.
You mentioned you had 2 daughters that went to Israel with you. Are they still in Israel?
All of my children are in Israel. All of my grandchildren were born in Israel and growing up in Israel. Our third daughter that was born just before we came to live in Israel is now living in our old apartment and raising 5 of her own children there, where she grew up in Kiryat Arba. And my son is raising a family in Kiryat Arba now. He has a little girl. And we're growing. This is against the Clinton thing, you know. This is called natural growth. It's a crime to have natural growth in a place like Kiryat Arba. I mean, children making their own homes and raising families. They should stop doing that. That's against the peace process. How can you have peace if you have children? You know, that's the most amazing thing. How could she say such a thing? No natural growth. She actually said that. Can you imagine?
That's what they're doing in China. We had a lady here the other day from China that they allow 1 over there. You have to abort any beyond 1.
Really?
And they come to your house to make you abort.
Oh, wow.
Well, speaking of that, what do you see as the future with this building freeze? Is it you were affected by it, weren't you, in your area?
Well, I don't know that we were. To tell you the truth, on their own, my leaders tried to slow down building. They haven't been very forthcoming, even without the pressure. And I also believe that much of the pressure they bring upon themselves, I would so love to see a leadership to say, what are you talking about? What country in the world tells people where they can build homes? What kind of nonsense. Of course we're going to continue building our homes, and we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to thrive. And this is going to happen despite our leaders and despite our enemies. That's our destiny. And I can see it. Every place I look, I watch my country developing and growing. It's a beautiful thing to see. When you come and visit, you can see some beautiful, beautiful things. The desert is not only blooming, it's blossoming, and everything is just so wonderful there. And the fact that it happens in spite of people who are trying to make it stop, who are trying to damage the process. And
Do you think there's any conceivable way in your mind that there could be 2 states?
Absolutely not.
It's not going to happen.
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Of course not. First of all, as you said, as we discussed before, there are already many states on our soil. Egypt, Syria, Jordan. They're sitting on our soil. That can't go on forever. That will come back to us.
Right.
I'm not saying that we should go and conquer it today. Things are going to happen that will return it to us, beyond our control. We have to do everything we can on the level that we're able to do it. And the miracles, that's God's department. He'll take care of the miracles. I see this in my life. I see this in my work with Project Shofar. I'm not a miracle maker. I can't change anybody's mind. I can't afford to make these trips. But God provides for me. And whatever I do, as his vessel, I'm pleased and delighted that I'm able to do it. And I don't even know half the things that I'm doing. when I speak to people, a lot of it is accepted by them, and I'll never know how it affected them. It's just something that, I'm part of a process, that's all. I'm doing the best I can, and I trust that God will do the rest. And as my rabbi once told me, he said, Gary, it's not a mitzvah, it's not a commandment to succeed, but it's a sin not to try. That's all we can do is try. And that's what I'm doing, I'm trying. And I'm not worried about the results. I'll let God worry about the results. That's the same thing with living in Israel, too. I'm not worried about who's elected prime minister and what kind of stupid laws they're going to pass and all these plans that they're making. I'm not worried about that. God will take care of that. I just want to keep on living the way I do. And, of course, the whole reason back when Prime Minister Barak was prime minister and he was dancing with Arafat at Camp David, he was prepared to give away all of Kiryat Arba, among other things.
Everything.
Everything.
90%.
I and my wife were sitting in an office in Kiryat Arba, and that same day, signing a contract to buy a home that we couldn't afford in Kiryat Arba. Barak is no longer prime minister. He never will be again. And our house is practically paid for already. And we're living in such happiness, I can't begin to tell you. Watching our grandchildren grow up in Kiryat Arba, living a good, wholesome life. I don't worry about what it says in the newspapers.
In the closing minutes here, we got about 7 minutes or so. What shofar blow would, or alarm, praise, whatever, what would you do here in this minute? Have you got one that you sounded the alarm a moment ago?
Well, no, it really isn't any special tones or anything. No, if you want me to sound it again, I'd be more than happy to, if you'd like that.
He's one of the best shofar blowers in the world.
I don't know about that. This also is a godly thing. It's not a musical instrument. It's a spiritual instrument, and I'm not a musician.
I grew up with Gabriel, come blow your horn. Mm-hmm. The horn is going to be.
That's the horn. Yeah.
The horn.
That's right. That's right. And it's not a matter of talent. It's just a matter of spirit, and God puts the spirit in, and it comes out. So the sounding of the shofar is really what I've been destined to do. I was born in the month of Elul, of the sounding of the shofar, and I've been fortunate to have somehow acquired the position of sounding the shofar as the mitzvah, the commandment, on Rosh Hashanah at the cave of Machpelah from my minyan, and that also is something that I can't understand or explain, because I don't know what made me have that privilege. But for over 20 years now, I've been doing it.
If I recall right, in 2001, you were here for a Faye Harden conference when the Intifada, is that what you said?
Intifada, yeah.
Broke out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And there was many of you gentlemen here talking about that. Now that's been 11 years, or 10, isn't it? 9? 2000,
a long time ago.
Somewhere in there, 2000, I think it was. What do you see the difference today than it was when you were here the first time?
Referring to what?
In Israel. Are you better off, worse off?
Israel is getting stronger and better every day in spite of our leadership, not because of them. It's a godly process that's getting better. Redemption is beginning, and it's all revolves around Israel. And the rabbis tell us that redemption and exile cannot live in peace with one another. You can only have one, you can't have both. So as the redemption proceeds, the exile comes to an end. And we're seeing the balance now, it's changing. The exile is going to come to an end. And what you've been talking about with the Muslims, that's one of God's tools as well. Mm-hmm. Because all over the world right now, the state of Israel, America too, is hated by the Muslims. And the Muslims are growing in leaps and bounds. They've taken over France pretty much already. They're working very hard in America and making tremendous headway here. Right. This is all part of a divine process. This is not a logical thing. So the threat is there. But Israel is getting stronger because it's part of a divine process. It has nothing to do with logic at all. Okay, you want me to sound the shofar one more time?
Yeah, would you?
Okay, do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's,
Well, and in this hour you've been with us, we wanted to make sure people did that. And tell them again how they might help you keep coming over here to sound the alarm.
Okay, well, I think they'll post on the
It's on the screen.
my email address and my website. You can come visit the website. You can sign up for my weekly newsletters that I send out. You can write to me anytime you want. I answer my emails. I enjoy communicating with people. And if you're in a position where you can afford to give us some financial help, if it's just a one-time gift, or better still, a very small monthly donation, we don't need a lot of money. I just need enough to continue these trips. And any help I can get makes a big difference. And you're working with a godly process. It's not an institution. It's a godly process. And I appreciate all the help I can get.
Where are you going from here?
Tomorrow I'll be going to Lubbock. And after that to Fort Worth, where I'll be speaking to a Jewish group, which is an unusual thing.
Really?
It's not easy to get to see Jewish groups, certainly not during the week. On the Sabbath, when I'm invited to a Jewish community, that's when I usually have my best opportunity to speak to Jews. But I was fortunate to find this rabbi of a conservative synagogue who is opening his congregation to me. So I'll be able to speak with them on Wednesday, I believe. And the rest of the week is going to be in Dallas, I think. And then I'll be going to Washington, D.C. on a week from today, on Monday. I'm going to be hosted by Dick Hellman, the president of CPAC. And I hope that I have some interesting meetings with interesting people, and we'll see how that works. That's kind of exciting for me. It's going to be a long day on Monday. On Sunday, I'm going to be speaking at what's his name, Joe Davis or something like that. There's a study group in near Houston that invited me to speak.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, Gary, you always bring an interesting message to us, and I'm glad that people are supporting you the way they do. We got about a minute. Is economics good or bad in Israel now?
Well, it's pretty bad everywhere now, I think. It's a difficult time right now for all of us. I think your president has been, our president has been really contributing tremendously to the economic decline. Spending money like there's no end to it, you know. And
I heard Israel is purchasing American dollars, though, to help support us. Even.
Good. Yeah. Our government takes American interest above its own. Yeah. There's no country in the world that does that.
And the shekel is doing well against the dollar.
I don't know. I'm not really.
It is.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts, Paul, on this program?
No, I enjoyed that.
Aren't you glad to have met Gary?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've always loved that shofar at the beginning of Update News, and it's really sort of fills a hole in me trying to figure out how they did that. Did you actually do it here at the station?
Yep. Okay. Did it right over on that other set. But that was so long ago, I forgot.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Well, anyhow, Gary, thank you so much for being with us. Hope you've enjoyed this program. And guess what? He can use your help. Thanks again. This program is brought to you exclusively by the love gifts and offerings of our faithful partners. Thank you, partners.